Welcome back from lunch, everyone. I hope you enjoyed some wonderful Japanese food, or in Paul's case, Chinese food. We're going to do the same thing as we did earlier today. No slides. I realize that it's sometimes nice to have the slides up, but we will share the slides with you, and I think this will help us stay to the time that we need. So I'm going to invite our panelists to come up to the floor. We have Jennifer Beamer from the US Repository Network, Gultekin Gurdal from Turkey, Petr Knoth from the UK, Sa-kwang from Korea, Martin Borchert from Australia, and Sylvie Rousset from France. And I'm going to ask everyone to try to keep it to 2 major points. And also, you know, some thoughts about how that's impacting the repository network. Okay, so everybody's here, and Jennifer, shall we start with you?
Okay, hello everyone, konnichiwa. My name's Jennifer Beamer, and I'm from the United States, and I was told I should tell a good joke, since I think you might be depressed. So I was told to tell this joke that open science has no tariffs, but bump. Or I spent a little time here at the NII working with CAUS and some of my excellent colleagues. I was also told I should say some dirty words that they taught me. And that might make you laugh, but I won't say any dirty words in Japanese, so I'll just get on with it. So some major things that are going on in the United States that you might be seeing on in the TV, or you might be hearing through emails or through your networks. There is some good news, and that is, if you recall, the OSTP or Nelson Memo is still going. There are, we're still seeing the federal agency policies are rolling out. It seems like the current administration and our current president is very interested in making sure that taxpayer-funded research is going to be open access. So we saw a few days ago, we saw actually NIH, the National Institutes of Health, they accelerated their open access policy. So it will be happening on July 1st, which is actually my birthday, which is a good birthday present. So we are going to see that happen. So no embargo. They have also stated that data must be available, which is a little bit of concern for us librarians. How are we going to provide that data so quickly? And also that you do not have to pay to make that work openly available. So that's really good news, right? It's coming very quickly, and it appears like other agencies are going to follow that lead. So that's pretty good news for us. Another exciting thing that wrapped up for us, and maybe my colleague Petr can elaborate later when we're at the reception, and I know at the Open Repositories Conference he's going to present on this as well, is we had a pilot project in the United States where 23 institutions worked with COAR and also Paul with Antleaf. We worked together using the COAR dashboard to take a look at some of the practices that we were working on in our repositories with an emphasis on discovery. And we sort of took a look at what we were doing, whether or not some of us had the OAI PMH turned on in our repositories, and shockingly enough, we found that about half of us didn't. And so the items in our repositories were not being found. And at the end of that, and I will, when we share the slides, you'll be able to see I've put a QR code. You'll be able to go to that report. You'll see that we made available or made discoverable almost 700,000 more items. So you can imagine with almost 1,000 repositories in the US, if we were to go through and do this exercise, there's possibly millions more things that could be discovered. So we're looking forward to moving forward with figuring out how we can do this on a larger scale. And then finally, the bad news. And this is probably what you're seeing on the news and what we wake up to in the US thinking about and worrying about, is really this current administration is, I'm calling it the destroying and defunding phase. So we're waking up to news of federal agencies, research money being cut and disappearing. There's the removing of data, the censorship of research. Some journals are receiving letters from the White House asking them to remove research that's already been done in journals. Just before I flew to Japan, the librarian at the Library of Congress was fired, and the registrar of copyrights, the person who's in charge of our copyright office, was also fired. And this could be bad news in terms of letting Sam Altman, our ChatGPT guy, AI, take over in terms of scraping things that are copyrighted. There's a lot of speculation about what's going to happen. Now, whether or not you are worried about these things, or we're worried about these things, I think some of the implications this has for repositories, and we've been talking a lot about it at USRN, is that we could view this in two ways. Either our repositories are going to be very resilient, or they're very fragile. We are facing significant challenges in this current climate. Many of our infrastructures and repositories are already under-resourced. We don't have enough humans. We don't have enough money. They're very fragile. Over the years, they have been underfunded. And of course, with the cutting of funding for our government agencies, universities, research projects being significantly reduced, there's a risk of those repositories disappearing altogether and potentially taking those valuable collections that we've been working offline. However, the good news in this is that there are examples of people saving that data. It's not always in the best ways, but people are saving and archiving things before they disappear. Now, I also sound a bit alarmist. I know others will disagree with me, but we're doing our best. And from that moment, I will turn it over to the next. I don't want to make you all depressed. Anyway.
Okay, I'm going to continue on with my summaries of people's points because I got a lot of compliments about my summaries over the lunchtime. So what I would say is there is a very strong open access policy that's coming into effect in the United States that remains still part of the agencies who are funding research. But on the other hand, there is a very big risk to a lot of funding to research in the United States right now. And it's sort of an open question in terms of how that will impact repositories. And one of the possible impacts could be that repositories get stronger because the university system gets stronger because they know they can't rely on the agency system. So to be continued in terms of what's happening in the United States. Thank you, Jennifer. And now we will move on to Gultekin in Turkey, from Turkey.
Thank you. You remember me from yesterday, the man whose wife, Japanese instructor. Also, I would like to thank you, Kathleen. She lost my slides. I stayed with my paper. So I would like to highlight some important developments from Turkey. I would like to start with the infrastructures. We are very happy that our government decided to support Diamond Open Access journals. So they are providing free hosting service for all Diamond Open Access journals in Turkey. It started especially two years ago with the 100 journals, but now we have around 3,000 journals. Free of charge hosting service our government providing for all universities. This is one of the important things. Another thing is we didn't have the national data repository, but now we have. We have a national data repository. Our national funder running this service is a replication of the Zenado. It's a very nice software. Also, they are providing unlimited space for researchers. And then another thing is about the infrastructures. We are migrating our DSpace softwares from version 5, version 6 to the version 7. My last statistics, around 40% of the institution repositories updated their software to DSpace 7. We are trying to increase the awareness. We are encouraging the people migrate their repository in DSpace 7. Also, one of the good things, Higher Education Council decided to get annual report from repositories in universities. So they are collecting reports, how many article open access, how many article published, how many theses. So they are forcing the people to use the repositories. This is one of the important things. Also, in our site, in my institution's sites, as I mentioned yesterday, we have an institution repository and a research information system solution, which is called GCRIS. We developed the GCRIS AI. GCRIS AI, we have tested around 250 different questions. Is getting answer all these questions 94% successfully. So we are trying to increase interest of the researchers to the institution repositories. Also, we are added lots of new features to our system, because if you use only flat DSpace features, it didn't take interest of the researchers. So you have to put some new things, your institution repository, to increase usage of the repository. We are working on it. And then what's on my agenda? Also, we, as an Izmir Software Technology, we have signed Budapest Open Access Initiative again. This is one of the important things for me. Okay, that's all. Why don't you cut my slides?
So from what I understand from what you're saying is that you're building more open science infrastructure and strengthening it, and trying to make it more useful and interesting for researchers by building value-added services on it.
We are trying to make the repositories their first searching point. Also, if they published anything, if they put their report, if they are put their any research output, it should be came to their mind. We have an institution repository, we can put it there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
you're starting to use, you don't have to answer this, this is my summary. You're starting, and the funders or government are using the repositories to monitor compliance with the research policy, with the policy there. Yeah. So that's great, thank you. Petr.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. So thank you very much, everyone, for the privilege, and Kathleen, to be able to provide an update on the UK situation. And indeed, I am feeling very privileged today because I can see the slides, but you can't. In open access words, there is our terminology. There is a 30-minute embargo on my slides. So I discussed this update with two colleagues, Leigh Stork, who is from the University of Strathclyde, and Tom Blake, who is from the University of York, because they represent the UK COAR. UK COAR is the United Kingdom Council of Open Research and Repositories. So it's the network of UK repositories, and what I represent COAR, Connecting Repositories, which is a national indexing aggregation system which serves globally, but is primarily here also, and is in the position of a national aggregator for UK repositories. So UK COAR is really the professional organization that sort of supports the working on open research, scholarly communication, and institutional repositories across the country. And in the UK, just to very briefly remind you, maybe some of you know, but we have the following policy landscape. So we have the UKRI open access policy. There's a new version of it since 2022, and that requires basically immediate deposit immediate open access, basically, of UKRI funded research. There are other funders who might have very similar policies, basically, but UKRI is certainly the main funder here. It could be gold, it could be green, basically. There's no preference expressed in the policy. And the second really important policy, which I think is very progressive, is a policy called the REF policy. So in the UK, we have a research evaluation framework, and there is a green policy which sort of requires that anything that would be evaluated ever in the national evaluation exercise, which is highly important for universities because they want to see their ranks up, basically, or they also want to receive good funding from the government based on the result of the REF system. So that requires deposit within 90 days of acceptance, basically, deposit into an institutional repository. So I think that mandate is particularly important for us. So this is the landscape in which we operate, and the government provides, or actually the UKRI, that is the funding organization in the UK, provides open access block grants. These are effectively, this is effectively funding that gets allocated to universities based on their sort of research outcomes. So different universities get different sort of block grant. And it could be used either for funding APCs or it could be used for funding research infrastructure. The sad thing is that the vast majority of it, typically is used actually for funding APCs. So this is, something that I don't like. But Kathleen said that I should update you on two things that happened recently in the UK, and that had the biggest or that are having the biggest effect. And so these are the two things. In short, the financial situation of UK universities is thing number one, and the second thing that changed is the opportunities that are actually stemming from AI. And both of these are highly interconnected. So let me tell you a little bit, let me elaborate a little bit on this. So there is a huge underfunding crisis in the UK at the moment going on, and this is going completely across the sector. This is, I think, this year and maybe next year we will see it. It's now really coming to crunch time. Why is this crisis happening? It's happening because since 2019. Universities were not able to increase student charges, basically. There has been a cap, and the cap has stayed exactly the same. And because of inflation, it means basically that the universities have, in real terms, about 50% less money than they had 7 years ago. There is also a cap on foreign students, because foreign students, overseas students used to pay a lot, or do pay a lot more money, basically, in student fees. And the government is cracking down on immigration, and effectively these numbers cannot, so the universities have no way of compensating for it. And there is also, this outcry from Brexit still, because UK researchers are less successful in bringing in EU funding than they were before Brexit, for obvious reasons, because we were also not part of the program for some time, but now we are back. And then there's less research funding than there was. So actually everything is going against the universities at the moment, and it's very difficult for them to navigate this. So what this means for the universities is that there's innovations are stalling, there's a skills drain, there are security threats, and UK repositories, which used to be, I would say, the driving force in the world, are potentially falling behind at the moment, which is of course not great. And so the way we want to address this generally is that every institution, every repository I am aware of wants to do two things. They are looking into how they can reduce manual labor, or how they can reclaim staff time and energy, basically, somehow, so that they could focus on other things like optimizing repositories, supporting new technologies, engaging, globally in open research and innovation, which is incredibly difficult for them. And so what they need really is smarter, automated, they need basically tools, basically. But the biggest, most important tool that is most required at the moment are tools for automated policy compliance checking, basically. So the open access mandates and so on, bring with them also some administrative hassle. And when we at COAR, when we ask institutions what mostly matters to them, they say, we want tools that help us to support open access policy compliance. And indeed, COAR delivers a tool in this respect, and we will be making that tool better. But it goes a little bit further. It goes like they need support across repositories with a range of things. For instance, the second thing they want the most is they want tools to help them detect duplicate documents. They want tools to protect them against AI bots. We talked about this yesterday. That's the third most important thing that they want. And then finally, they want metadata validation and fair compliance tools. The list is longer, but these are the top ones, basically. So this is where the UK is. And of course, these tools are now made somehow more possible and more viable thanks to AI. So effectively, we have a financial crisis, and we need to reduce effort, and we are looking into ways in the UK how we can do so with technology, because that's probably the only thing we can do at the moment. So that's, I think, in a nutshell, all that I wanted to say. Thank you, Kathleen, for the space.
Thank you, Peter. So what you're seeing is essentially you have a very strong policy that requires, through the REF, deposit into repositories, but at the same time, a reduction in funding for the university system. And this is creating a crunch for the repository network in the UK.
Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe if I can add just one thing. I think the real challenge here is that the policy is very good. The problem is that there isn't an envelope so the universities can use the open access block grants for anything in connection to making their stuff open access. And because it's very simple for them to use them for APCs, the vast majority of it is distributed for funding APCs and not for funding research infrastructure. It would have been incredibly helpful in the UK if we had an envelope which would say a maximum of, I'll say 50%, for instance, or a certain percentage of the open access block grants could be used for funding APCs, and the rest must be used for infrastructure. We unfortunately don't have that, and that would have been really helpful.
Thank you, Peter. So we can move on now to Sa-kwang from Korea.
Thank you, Kathleen. This is my time, yeah. Before getting to my talk, some people might ask me about, sometimes some people might worry about me because, the South Korea's, political crisis. Some of you might know about that, the failed coup. Anyway, there's no problem with traveling around, okay? Don't worry about me. Okay, I'm going to talk about, recent main activities or some kind of event related to open data and open access. And this time, I'm going to tackle three topics: open access, open data, and the last one, we are currently conducting a small project with UNESCO. So I'll introduce that one at the last. Open access in Korea, actually, recently we have no outstanding or important policies But there are many major institutes, including KISTI, where I came from, has a lot of activities. I could not list all of them, but some of them are very important in Korean society in the perspective of open access. One of them is we developed and we are currently operating Diamond Open Access technical support systems, so-called Hyekyong Plus. And we also developed and operating a SAFE system, which is information service for preventing predatory, journal conference. And outside of KISTI, we also have another activities from National Research Foundation, which is a major funder in Korea. And they studied a long time on OA policy, but unfortunately the policy is not declared, not yet. And NRF employed an evaluation criteria for Korean citation index, which is like, SCI globally. So the evaluation criteria is online accessibility of journals and its articles. And also have another institutions in Korea, National Library of Korea, have been developed and operating Open Access Korea portal. Actually, this portal is to promote open access in South Korea, which is developed by KISTI. Actually, there are many very important activities in Korea, but in terms of government policy, they are not much focused on OA part. Instead of that, they are recently focusing on open data policy and open data, the legislation. So I'm going to introduce the recent issue about open data. Recently, Korean government made a new legislation draft for research data sharing and utilization, which is a so-called Research Data Act. Actually, this act is proposed by both ruling and opposition party in Korean National Assembly. So we hope that this rule and this legislation will be approved at the end of this year. I hope that. But actually, we hope that this legislation can be approved last year, 2024, because at the time the two parties agree with that legislation. But as I told you, the coup made it impossible. Okay. So currently, it is under review by the National Assembly's committee, one of the committees, and the main direction of that legislation is about the subject of research data management. It is transit from individual researcher or project to the institution. It means after this legislation, most of the government-funded research institutes should prepare their platform and regulation and organizations inside of their institution. So if it is approved, then there will be some kind of big revolution in this field. I expect that. And why it is necessary and important in Korea? Actually, we had a GMP regulation before, but actually the submission of GMP is not mandatory, and it has a very limited scope. So the actual number of GMP submission is quite small compared to the number of projects conducted in South Korea. And at the same time, the integrated management of research data is very necessary at the multi-ministry level, not in a single ministry. actually, most of the R&D conducted under the Ministry of Science and ICT, but many other projects are also conducted under another ministry in South Korea. So sometimes the previous rule regulations does not affect to the other ministry. So that's why we need this kind of new legislation. And you understand that it is also very essential to recent AI revolution. So that's why the new legislation is coming up recently. And the last one is that I'm going to talk about the UNESCO and KISTI collaboration project. Its goal is to advance open science and software heritage for sustainable development. The duration is almost 5 years from this March 2025. And its scope is open access, open data, and software heritage. Actually, its activities include development of open access policies with a special focus on diamond open access models, and promotion of open data and responsible data governance frameworks, and recognition of software source code as a digital heritage. As you can see in these activities, most of these three activities are supported by KISTI. So we support our open access platform AccessOn, and open data platform DataOn, and open software platform, so-called KRDC. Those three platform and technologies and experiences will be provided to the UNESCO in order to support the Asian and African countries to promote their, open science, culture and technologies. That's all. Okay. It's too long?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Sa-kwang. The priority in South Korea now is research data as opposed to open access.
Yes.
But you're still working towards Diamond, strengthening your Diamond open access ecosystem.
Right.
And you're working on a project with UNESCO that's looking at research data management, software heritage, and research publications. And I'm assuming, based on what you said, that this project will also, KISTI's infrastructure will be open to some other countries as well who need to be able to use it.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we can move on to Martin from Australia.
Hello everybody and good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here from Australia. It's wonderful to be here with you. It also was a delight also to join also the board for COAR. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to working with everybody also in that capacity. I'm going to provide some updates what's happening here in Australia. I'm just going to start with some broader sort of things and then move into the infrastructure, and then perhaps some ideas for a plan going forward for Australia as well. We recently had a federal election, and the government actually was re-elected, and I think that's very exciting because I like that government, but also it's a rarity in Australia in recent years to have that happen. But it means, I think, that we're going to have a period where we might expect more of the same, and that we have in there like the support and understanding for education and research. Hoping that we're in for a stable time here in Australia as well. Australia has enjoyed a long time where our research has done very well and grown, and I'm hoping to see that increase, but there is quite a lot happening as well. In the meantime, though, in higher education, we're also seeing some changes to international enrolments. There's also changes in the student. We've also had had, I think, a change in where students are enrolling. We're tending to see often that the largest universities and the biggest cities do quite well, but unfortunately not all the other universities are doing as well. And so there's been a lot of situations where libraries have had their staff cut, even by half. And so they may not have the resources that they've had before. And of course, that is going to create a challenge. In the infrastructure space, Australia's had a long history of, I think, of research infrastructure investment at the large scale, including, I think, in all our platforms are for data. Also, there's been investment into each of the disciplines as well, but we haven't had large-scale investment into repositories for what I think is a very long time, although each of our institutions do have a repository as well. We were using our repositories in research assessment for a period of time, but not recently because that process has stopped. So I guess we don't have the driver there that we had in that space that we had before as well. A few other comments that I've got is that, let me see, we do have a few gaps in our infrastructure that I wanted to mention. So with each of our institutions having our own repository, it could be locally or cloud hosted, we tend to have different experiences for our researchers. We don't have an aggregator service running across the top in the way that some other countries have. And we also don't have a diamond infrastructure that we share, like I know that I'm hearing about in other countries today. Although some of us, I think of our institutions we have a policy on open access, and also we have an open access policy with some of the funders, the Australian Research Council and the National Health and Medical Research Council. We don't have a national approach to open access at the moment, and we don't have a national approach also like that with rights retention either. But we have seen a large increase also in OA, which has really been through the journals. We've had Council of Australasian University Librarians negotiate open access publishing agreements, which have tended to move us much higher into the open access space. But I would say that the level of open access through repositories has not increased in that time. We've also got work then from Open Access Australasia, which is working in staff in our institutions to help with building the understanding, the knowledge, and then to help with the advocacy, and then with capacity building as well. So in that space, recently, I think a few years ago, there was a project started with government looking at advice for open access for Australia. We all engaged. So then we were engaged, and then we provided advice as well from COAR and Open Access Australasia, and that was released last year with a model which was really aimed at giving the public access model, which was more like a national level of subscriptions rather than what I would normally understand as an open access model. It didn't include the diversity that we would expect. We would have, for example, the inclusion of repositories and also rights retention. It was well received by some parts of the public, of course, because they wanted to see that, but generally it wasn't what the libraries were hoping to see and expecting to see, and it hasn't been implemented. I think there's time to see what might happen with that if it's going to evolve in one way, and it'll be interesting to see if it'll impact also, I think that if we do also are funding a submission for repository infrastructure, is the outcome of the public access model going to impact, I think, the ability for us to achieve the funding as well. So we'll see how that goes. So where I think that leaves us now going forward, I think there's an opportunity here in Australia to invite some people here, experts to Australia. Maybe we have a rethink and a bit of a regroup about what we might want to do. I think we'll need funding. We have gaps in infrastructure to fill that I mentioned before. And we'll see what are the possibilities and what are the choices that we, I think, are going to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. So, I mean, my summary of what you have just presented is that right now it's not sort of centralized and centrally organized movement towards open access. And you're in an environment where potentially some of the libraries are losing some of their funding as well. And but you're, still keen to try to move things forward, and potentially some international collaboration and interaction might be helpful for you.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so last but not least, and it's no accident that the French colleagues are going last, because they have one of the most, shall we say, well-developed ecosystems and policy environments for open access. So I'll turn it over to you, Sylvie.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. I'm very happy to be here to tell you some more recent development. So you said 2 trends and 1 impact for repository. We try to do this. We have prepared this with Nathalie Fargier, which is the head of the National Repository for Publication and also for overlaid journals. And as you said, in France, we have now an open science French policy, and then more and more institutions are adopting also open science policy, which is a good sign. We have developed an open science barometer, and what is new now is that it's not only for publication, but it's also for data set and software. So we have enlarged what we can measure. And in addition, this is really a crucial point I want to make here. We have made some studies to know how much we pay for open access, meaning the cost of article processing charge, because it's nice to say that we have more and more articles that are in open access. In France, it's about 70%. At CNRS, it's almost 100% of the article from the researcher hired by the CNRS which are in open access. But the problem we are facing now is the cost of open access through article processing charge. I think it was really illustrated this morning by this Japanese survey that there is a misunderstanding between using a repository and also paying, using the gold open access to make the article in open access. So we have found that there has been an increase of the cost of article processing charge for the whole system in France by 3 times during 7 years. And we have also made an analysis of what will be the perspective for the future. And then it shows that it will increase more and more. At CNRS, we have analyzed a model where all the articles in the end will be paid by article processing charge, because I think this is a model that the big publisher wants to establish. We will have to pay 3 times more than what we pay today for subscription and article processing charge. So it's not affordable. It's not a good model. It's not ethical, because the author have to pay to be published. Some countries cannot afford, so it's not equitable. And so I think we should get rid of this model. That's the goal we want to go now, and also the transformative argument is not a good way, because you include the cost of APC inside the argument, but then the cost of the argument will increase more and more along the years. So nowadays, we really want to say we should avoid to pay article processing charge, and one of the solutions could be to foster the diamond model for publication. And in Europe, an action plan for diamond has been launched in 2022 by the National French Agency, the Plan S, and also the Science Europe. And more recently, in Madrid, in January 2025, a capacity hub for diamond publication has been launched, and this intends to help people to develop diamond journals. So this was my first point, but the second will be shorter. The second point is that we also have a new infrastructure for research data. So in addition to the infrastructure for research publication, the ministry has launched a platform for sharing the data, for generic data. And there is a lot of institutional repository where you could deposit your data. So we try to foster this point also. And finally, what is the impact and the focus for repository nowadays and for HAL is to focus on connected publication, data, and research software. So this is one of the key objectives of the second national plan in France for open science. And over the past 18 months, we have moved into an operational phase that researchers depositing their publication in HAL can now directly link associated data set. And the ambition will not stop there, but the goal will be to implement data exchange between platforms based on the COAR Notify protocol, and also to support the link with software, with open source, and what is archived by software heritage also. So I think that's what the main point I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Sylvie. And I think France, in a way, is a little bit farther ahead, and maybe also Spain, in the sense that you've tried the APC and transformative agreements route. You realize it's not going to work because it's too expensive, and so you are building national infrastructure to be able to support research. And now you're going even farther than just building your national infrastructure. You're connecting it together and linking it up into a very interconnected ecosystem. So congratulations, and we're happy to be working with you on the COAR Notify project related to that as well. So we have finished our brief presentations without any slides, and I wonder if there are any questions from the floor. We have a few minutes for questions or discussion. I see Irina has her hand up over here.
Thanks a lot. I have a question to Sa-kwang about your project with UNESCO, specifically an African part. Maybe if you could tell a little bit what kind of activities you plan there, and I would also like to suggest that perhaps we could collaborate on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question about our collaboration project with UNESCO and KISTI. Actually, this project just started this March. So currently, we have an outstanding result or progress, but the scope of the project includes open access, open data, and open software. Those three topics are included in the project document. So the aim of this project is to support the Asian and African countries or their institutions which are trying to build their own such kind of systems, for example, open access system or open data systems and so on. So technically we support UNESCO to disseminate our technology or system to those kind of countries or institutions. So for now, we KISTI have Access One, which is an open access platform. It provides several kind of functions inside of the platform. So we trying to make our platform to be available in such kind of institutions. And for the open data activity, we also have a research data management platform, so-called Day2 which also provide almost all of the functions that we are expecting at the research data management platform. And additionally, we also provide software data analysis platform inside Day2. So those kind of technologies will be transferred to those kind of countries. This is the project period is 5 years. So we have a long period. So for now, we are trying to find appropriate or candidates for such kind of institutions from Asian or African countries. That's our first goal, maybe this year, and then we will get into. We are trying to extend on other institutions or countries after that. Okay. Is it enough for your question? Okay. Thank you.
Here we have a hand up over here.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Song. You say like you have, or in Korea, you have, started DMP. I don't know, like what kind of challenges are you facing? Because if you take the case in Japan here, we have some problem because its funding agency has their own DMP. Or you can even see for like the Japan Science and Technology, they have several projects, and each project has his own DMP template. And until now, it's still in the Excel format. So in some university, like mine at Tohoku University, we started developing a DMP. But now we can support only one of the template. And we are trying to see for the future to include as a funding agency like AMAID and NEDO. But still now, there is no, guideline or rule that specify like you should use this template. Of course, it became a very hot topic in Japan, DMP and open access, and almost all of the universities are trying to, build a system that can support, those two, guidelines. But until now, I think we still have some challenges because of, how can we make the DMP uniform and each university can use it. I don't know, the system that you have, is it provided by the government or is it, built by, or each university has their own version? I don't know, can you just tell me more about the DMP in Korea? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. DMP systems. When I apply the DMP regulation to a certain project, we have to consider then some project management should write a certain DMP document and then submit to a certain system or some funding agency, and then they have to evaluate them with the project proposer. And then at the end of the project, usually, in Korea, usually at the end of the project, the DMP, according to the DMP document, the project manager should submit a certain data set described in the DMP. That's the general rules. But actually in Korea, it's not fulfilled. I mean, many of the PM does not care about DMP, and they just submit some of the data set, and sometimes the data sets are almost garbage. So that's why we say this DMP system or regulation is not successful. That's why we trying to make another regulation, as I told you, that Research Data Act. Okay? So especially in Korea, this DMP regulation is not mandatory. So each organization, each institution, they have their own regulation, but some of them follow the regulation. That's the problem. So the number of DM submission is quite small compared to the number of R&D subjects, okay, in Korea. So that's why I sometimes say that this regulation or DM system is almost failure, okay? So now, actually we tried to propose the research data regulation more than 3 years. 2021, we started to make a draft version of Research Data Act. And we also have reached it almost at the end of stage of regulation process. At the time, there's political issues, again. So we failed to approve that regulation. So last year, we started again from the bottom. And then we achieved almost at the end of. So I expect that this regulation could much more impact on this kind of an open science community in Korea. Okay, that's enough for your question. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? There's some hands up over here. Kazu and Isabel. Oh, is there anyone else?
So this is not a question to each individual speaker, but to the whole entire this community. So this the country update was so informative to me. This is the best session in all over the world, whole entire conference in this planet. So is there any plan as a COAR or JPCOAR after finishing this in the conference? It's not a compendium, but to summarize and described by the report, or we're gonna publicize the PDF file. But in addition to that, if possible, so it's so gonna be so useful for us when, for instance, when they request a budget to the countryside or government, so refer to this kind of the worldwide situation. So from one side, from the COAR or JPCOAR. So how to think about it?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to do that. So all of the sessions are being recorded, and now with transcription tools and AI to help summarize things, I think it becomes easier to be able to prepare these kind of reports. We did a bit of it last year, but this year I think I totally agree with you. These country updates have been really interesting, and it would be worthwhile to really summarize them into a report and present them. So stay tuned for that in a few weeks. Isabel?
Yeah, I totally agree with Katsu, and I was even having the crazy idea we should do this in writing for every country that is participating in COAR, because it's really very informative to have all this real-time information and details. You don't find this anywhere. But I wanted to ask Jennifer, thank you everyone, but I'm curious, you didn't mention anything about CORUS, this publisher initiative in the US, or it's too depressing to comment? CORUS?
I'm sorry, because there's so many really great things. There's Chorus, there's also Helios. Have you heard about Helios? The higher, I'm not very good at acronyms, but it's the higher education, KISTI. Do you know the acronym for it, Helios, the higher education?
Kristi's looking behind her.
Higher Education Open Science Group. I think it's 78 institutions, and it's all like administrators, directors, presidents are meeting together. There's just too many to name. So there's lots of really good activities, like grassroots activities going on. But yeah, actually, out of this idea, it would be great to have like little mini like running updates in a way, like more than just once a year would be fantastic to know. I don't know how we would do it, like a blog post, or that's really old school, but yeah, it would be great to have that.
Anyone? Oh, Kristi has her hand up way over on the other side, over here.
So thanks very much to Jen for mentioning Helios Open. Helios Open is Higher Education Leadership Initiative for Open Scholarship. Right now there's a collaboration happening between Helios Open and Make Data Count to develop, there's 3 objectives of this working group. It's very collaborative, very focused, and they're basically looking to establish a maturity model for institutional aspects of crediting data roles, and so getting reward and recognition for data types of roles rather than the usual publication types of metrics. The other thing is developing a series of resources to support institutions in understanding how they can credit people for their data production and work with other types of research outputs other than publications, which we're very excited about. Although I know we're far behind so many other parts of the world, it's been very inspiring, I think, to many people in the United States. The third thing that is being developed are some case studies that highlight excellent work that's happening in the United States to try and help us develop that community of practice so we can work together to make these kinds of changes happen, because it's, I think, a much more of a culture change initiative than it is a technical issue at this point, in my opinion. So, but yeah, thanks to Jen for mentioning Helios Open.
See, I was a good girl, and I thought we only got 3 slides. Right,
exactly.
Kathleen? Yeah.
You did what I asked you to do.
I only got 3 slides.
Any other questions?
Kathleen, may I add something about the research data management, the questions?
Sure.
Yeah. I would like to suggest, I'm talking with my another hat, OpenAIR Executive Board member. We have a tool free of charge, Argos. It's also a machine-readable research data management tool. If you want, you can use.
Okay, seeing no more hands, I'm going to make a small attempt at summarizing the 2 sessions, but then, of course, Kazu, we will try to prepare a more detailed report about this, and then we'll move on to the next part of the program. So I think what I heard was politics matter. It's having an influence on various countries, but it will not reverse the trend of open access, even in the United States, I think. And now what we're seeing is that most policies that have been presented by countries are policies that rely on repositories, deposit into repositories. So that's, I think, a very good sign for the repository community. So those are the open access policies, but we're also seeing research data and research software and other types of content are coming on the radar, which will also have an influence on our repository ecosystem. I think it's obvious, and we heard from several people, that there's a need for significant technical improvements to repository platforms right now. A lot of repositories are using old versions of their software, so we need to kind of step up our game in terms of the software platforms we're using. And I think because of this also, the struggle to maintain up-to-date software, we're seeing also the adoption of shared infrastructure for repositories in many countries, like HAL in France and Scolaris in Canada and other places. Research assessment systems, especially in Europe, are finally beginning to provide mechanisms that incentivize open access and sharing of other types of research data. Countries are building national infrastructure around diamond open access because they're getting fed up with the costs of the commercial publishing system. And we heard from several people about the prohibitive costs of DOIs, especially in developing countries, and both Latin America and Africa are looking at developing their own solutions that will be essentially, you know, not a pay per PID solution, that they can have more of their own local control over. So those are my takeaways, and again, I think it's a good idea for us to try to consolidate all the things we heard today and share it with all of you in a report. So for those of you who are looking at the, oh, well, let's say thank you very much to our panelists. That was great. Thank you for putting up with me for not allowing you to show your slides. So you may step down now. And as they're stepping down, I'd just like to point out that there are a number of COAR executive board members that are here with us today. We have a very new board. I guess it's been about a month that we have a new board. We have Isabel Bernal, who's our chairperson, Omo Owaya, who's our vice chairperson, Martin Borchert, who was just up here. We have Irina Kuchma from EIFL, Nathalie Fargier from France, and Mikiko Tanafuji. And I don't know if Mikiko's in the room with us right now, but she is your Japanese representative on the COAR Executive Board. And we have two other members who are unable to join us in Tokyo. That's Pedro Principe from the University of Minho in Portugal, and Jeff Harder, who's based at University of Alberta in Canada.